Well, that's good to hear. We're going to get to a few audience questions, but I wanted to ask you one question first because I think it's so important that menopause is portrayed in a fairly negative light, and and women feel fearful of menopause. What can we do, not just to reassure women, but to just reframe our view of menopause as a normal time, and maybe there's wisdom that comes with menopause, maybe good things happen with menopause, but we don't have those conversations. So how do we change that conversation?
Yes, I think two things need to happen. The first one is that we need to use the right terminology for menopause. I hear this all the time. There are people who want to frame menopause as a disease, and women who want other people who want to frame it as just aging. And I think this is confusing to a lot of women because they feel caught up in this kind of battle between opposites that is not super helpful because menopause is actually neuroendocrine transition state. It's a unique category of biological events that do not need to be compared to a disease or healthy or not healthy chronological aging. It's a very specific biological category of neuroendocrine transitions where the brain and the reproductive system are changing at the same time. And these include puberty, pregnancy, and perimenopause, which is the transition to menopause. And if you think about it that way, it's a lot less alien, it's a lot less foreign because you had a preview as we were going to puberty. And then for women who have children, every time a woman gets pregnant, there's a similar transition happening in the brain. So during puberty, we all know that body temperature regulation changes, right? Usually teenagers are sweaty or
Right.
they do experience changes in sleep and mood and cognition. They're brain fogged effectively quite often. And the same thing happens with pregnancy. The mommy brain is a foggy brain as well for some women, and there's a risk of depressive symptoms, as we all know, because it's the same system that is changing every time there's a transition state. So this is important to know. And the other part of the puzzle is that menopause actually, number one, is biologically programmed as opposed to just aging. There's a reason that it happens. And when it does happen, yes, there's vulnerabilities, there are symptoms. Menopause is no walk in the park by any means. But then there's also resilience. We need to realize and appreciate that our brains as women have the capacity to adapt to menopause and carry on. And after menopause, our brains actually become better interconnected, seem to become better interconnected in terms of very specific brain regions that support emotional regulation and theory of mind, with the results that after menopause, women develop greater empathy, which I think is a wonderful gift. And also, life contentment appears to increase after menopause and remain fairly high um, in the years following, to the point that some women report actually feeling happier after menopause than they themselves were before menopause. And there's also greater hormonal balance after menopause that leads to better emotional regulation. So
I mean,
these are
that's